Hey everybody, what's
Hello.
going on? It's Ryan Kidd and I am the Human B-Side, and today I've got a great interview for you. Last year my guest put out a stellar EP that's out via No Count Records. It's out on wax and CD. And before that, he was writing, producing, and performing on records that would be the adoration of killed by death collectors for decades to come. He is the rock and roll sleuth who is living his truth. Today, we are not killed by death, we are killed by Milman. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alan Milman, much respect for coming on the show, Alan.
Well, thank you. But our slogan should be "Safe as Milman."
I like that. I like that. We could change it. We'll redo it. Before we get into the interview, I just want to give a shout out to a mutual friend of ours, George, who put us in contact with one another, and he's a great guy. So I just want to give a shout out to
Oh yeah,
George.
great guy.
Yep. So thanks, George,
From
for getting us in touch with one another here. And really, I want to start by talking about what you're doing musically now, because you released a new EP last year, which, by the way, is rocking, man. It's like fresh. The sound is fresh and vintage all at once, and it has Evan Foster from Boss Martians on it.
Evan Foster and Eric
That's
Foster,
right. Yep.
and I reunited with my original guitarist as well, Doug Kazam. I'm writing songs with Doug, with Evan, and several other guys writing for stuff I'm going to sing and other people are going to sing.
So,
In different projects.
so the things come. There's going to be stuff coming out with Doug.
Yes,
Oh, that's
eventually.
great.
We're first we're going to release the Alan Millman. I'm sorry, the Alan Millman Sect live at Max's Kansas City from January 31st, 1978. It's an entire show that was recorded, fortunately, and that's being prepared for release in about the middle of the year, summer, fall.
That's awesome, man. That's going to be great.
So, yeah, that's going to come out first, and then we're going to do another, probably another EP, probably a four-songer.
Very cool. It's going to be cool to hear you guys back together playing again.
Well, it will be Doug. It will be incredible because it will be the original guitarist Doug and the current guitarist Evan and Eric, who plays guitar and bass and sings. In my stuff he usually plays bass and sings, but he's equally good on guitar and bass. They both are actually.
Yeah, the leads on the new record are fantastic, man. Just ripping,
They're very much an integral part of the songs.
big time, big time. I want to get into a few of the songs on the last EP.
Oh, sure.
Just a little bit about some of the subject matters. Like the record kicks off with bloodlines and breadlines, right? Which seems kind of like
Yes.
a vitriolic jab at the state of the world today.
Well, the most important thing is that people, have food and shelter, not amassing as much unnecessary gratuitous money as they can.
Yeah.
I mean, if people work for money, it's their money, but they should have the decency to be philanthropic about it. People in that position should be feeding a lot of people. If I were to in some manner acquire a lot of money, I would open food banks. I wouldn't be buying jewelry and limousines.
Right, you do some good with it. Yeah.
Well, that's what I want to do. I mean, I don't really see that as very fulfilling,
Right.
just flattering yourself and a lot of conspicuous spending. Not that I have to worry about that because I don't have a pot to piss in, but I cook for people now. I get people food. I live in low income housing. I do what I can, but these people are just not human.
Yeah, and you can hear the angst in the song, and it's just a killer lead off song.
Well, especially with the part of the song about children in abject poverty, total poverty, and that's the most disturbing part. The children are innocent. Adults get into problems, and they can basically confront them, with more resources than a child who doesn't understand what's going on and still is deprived nutrition, and shelter in some extreme cases. Very disturbing,
It
and
is,
that's what the
and to think of a world we live in with so much advancement in technology and things that we still have people who can't be fed
Well,
or
we have the alien that's taken over the government, who wasn't elected, Elon Musk.
well, I'm
He's
gonna
got to go.
we're gonna get into some aliens later. I have actually an alien question for you. But that's a little later on. All right.
Well, you never know. I mean, you look at Elon Musk's face, and I see the face of an alien. You ever seen the show V? he has the same kind of eyes as the aliens do in V, who are really reptiles.
Uh,
So he
uh,
might be actually a reptile.
I think Doge is going to cut the fat from this interview, right? Is that correct?
Doge, like call boys from some billionaire that I don't misconstrue anything. Whatever anybody's sexuality is, that's just fine. But I think if it was women or men or they, it wouldn't make any difference. The Doge boys, as far as I can ascertain, are call boys from another millionaire that's richer than Elon Musk, who they worked for prior to being his henchmen now.
The Doge Boys, I think that's the new band.
The
That's a
douche
name.
boys.
Yeah. Well, we've gone from Doge Boys and let's go to Cocksuckers and Motherfuckers, which is the second song on your record. And
Well, that's a let's not think that it's gratuitous. It's that's basically a metaphor for Trumpers.
yeah, I was going to ask you, is this about anyone in particular? Because I just love the
Yeah,
simplicity of the. uh,
it's
uh,
about Trump, and this was prior. When I wrote it, it was prior to Musk, but he fits the profile perfectly, and any of their other cohorts, flunkies, the people that are being appointed, for his cabinet are ridiculous. I know kitchen cabinets that are more intelligent than this presidential cabinet.
I love the simplicity of the lyric, though. It's just he's just always trying to run my shit. Is that the line? I love that.
Well,
That song, it's great.
basically, I like that descriptive word. It's a very versatile word. Shit, it's literal. It's part of your everyday life, but then it represents certain people. They're trying to force themselves on you. Your routine,
Right. Yeah.
your life.
You could
They're
use
trying
it
to
as
tell you what
an adjective or a noun, or I guess
whatever
it could
you
be a
like.
verb too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we could probably stretch it into each area.
Yeah, maybe, maybe. It's a great tune,
Well,
and then you roll up with "Stitched Up Heart," which is like,
basically, it's inspired by Bo Diddley's song "Pills."
oh yeah,
Believe it or not, it's I believe that was the one about the rock and roll nurse song. The
oh
Dolls
yeah.
covered
The
that
Dolls
song.
covered it. Yeah.
Stitch. It's about the rock and roll doctor.
I remember the first time I saw the. I was too young to see the Dolls. Obviously when they were in their in their prime, but when they reunited, and it was like Sylvain and David Johansen, and they had the rest of the characters.
And
With
Steve
Steve Conte,
Conte.
yeah, I did an
who-
interview with him. He was really good. He was really
I
cool.
think Steve Conte is one of the best guitarists, on the scene in terms of current music. There was also a guy, and he kind of reminds me a bit of Jeff Beck, who I really like from the Yardbirds and solo.
Oh yeah.
But there was another guy who was like that. I can't recall his name, but he played with. No, I know his name. His name was Brendan Benson, and he played with Jack White in another band. What was Jack White's side band with the White Stripes?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Well, anyway, it could be looked up, but he had another band that might still be going. Actually, I'm not sure,
Oh,
but
was it Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I think it had something to do with crows or something. I don't know. I can't remember.
no, 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 no. That's a different
Different
band.
band. Oh,
But
okay.
this is it could easily be looked up. But Brendan Benson, the guitarist from that band, was very Beckish also. And when I say Beck, I mean Jeff Beck, not Beck Hansen.
No, yeah. When I talked to Steve Conte, he was a great interview, man, and I think he did an awesome job filling the shoes of Thunders because he wasn't like trying to be exactly like Thunders, and I thought that was cool. Like
No,
he
no,
still had his own
he's quite
style.
good, but quite different.
Yeah. Well, going back to Pills, I remember seeing that reunion tour, and I was like 15, I think, when they came back, and
Mhm.
they played Pills live, but changed the lyric to instead of "to my head" was "too much head," and I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, I thought that
Well,
was neat.
that's what Iggy Pop would do in the Stooges, or Johansson would do, and that's actually how I started writing songs, by substituting wise ass lyrics, where the original lyrics were. That's how I learned how to write songs, write lyrics, write melodies, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's really interesting you say that because I kind of do the same thing with guitar. Like I try to learn songs on guitar just by listening to them. And I
Yeah.
usually fuck it up, but like when I fuck it up, it turns into something different and kind of cool.
Well, you got to go by the credo that Miles Davis had. There are no mistakes in music.
I like that.
You basically, when you come up with a mistake, not every time, but quite often, you'll come up with something that's equally as good or different and good. You know, it's not a matter of just copying; it's a matter of going off into your own thing that starts somewhere else, because it just gets passed down like like troubadours through the ages. Songwriting, it wasn't attributed to somebody on a copyright form back in the old days. People just did it, and people altered it and passed it on, and
Yeah.
it kept going through these permutations, and that's basically how the whole train of songwriting works.
That's well said. Yeah, I think you're totally right on that, man. And the last track on the record, I Found You Dead.
Yeah,
Just a short, sharp shock, man. The crispest guitars, more hooks than a tackle box, man. And it kind
yeah.
of gives
Well,
me like a
I love Evans playing, and it's always great attack.
it
It's
is.
not like gratuitous. There's that word again. Or just misplaced. Everything's perfectly placed because he knows what to play and he knows what not to play, and what not to play is an entire science of its own.
Well, I was gonna say that's almost more important than knowing what to play.
Yeah,
They're just so how do I say it? They're just where they need to be. It's almost
yeah. That's
instinctual,
that's
you
the
know.
whole thing. That's the whole thing. You got to feel. It's not a matter of like people being taught how to write songs. You can't teach somebody how to write songs. You can tell somebody what a song is made of, but you can't make them feel it and make it authentic. In other
Yeah,
words, songwriting is an authentic thing, unless you're just some mercenary writing some crap. But I mean, good songs are written by people that get it from the gut.
exactly. And they're just the leads are so direct, and I love that. And it's
Well,
one of
you should
those.
see him play. You should see him play live. He's
I would
quite
love to
quite
see
a
it.
showman too, and
That's
uh,
cool.
and people listen to what he plays, and he connects. He totally connects.
That's
That's what
great.
I can say
And
the
that's the
most
sign of a
about
good
him.
guitar player, man. To be honest with you, I mean, and
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And these guys that I work with are the best, the absolute best. I wouldn't be able to do this without them. They
it's really cool.
facilitate everything.
I just love that you're putting new music out, and then you have more plans for stuff. So everybody, go check out the new Alan Milman Sect EP. You can get it. It's on 12-inch wax, and it's on No Count Records. Where can they get it?
No Count Records. Oh, sorry, NoCountStore.com.
NoCountStore.com. Okay, cool. And I'm going to put that link up in the thumbnail.
NoCountStore.com. Just look on your copy, make sure that's the correct configuration,
It
because
is,
everything's
yeah.
so similar. I believe that's correct.
Yep, NoCountRecords.com. And then also you can go to AlanMilmansect.com.
If you want to order those, NoCountStore.com,
Cool.
because
But
it takes you to the mini mart, the No Count mini mart. But the wording is what I said, NoCountStore.com.
cool. Yeah, everybody check it out, man. It's one of those like you play and you just want to flip it over and play it again. Um, and
I
also,
I've heard that, but I don't really. Aside from actually creating it and performing it, I don't really listen to my own stuff. I think people that do are out of their minds. But um,
well, there's so much to listen to. I mean, I wrote it. I don't
yeah,
need to listen
well,
to it.
I'm always listening to music, but I mean, I have like 100 Miles Davis albums to listen to.
There's a lot to get to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
learning about modal music and free jazz and Albert Eiler. And I go from that to soul to it's basically to blues, to rhythm and blues, to country and
that's
western,
cool. I,
any area.
and I think too, like, and what I'd like to do is I have pretty much your discography here, a lot of your records, and I want to kind of go through them, and because you're not, it's not just punk that you've played. I mean, it's pretty versatile when you start getting into some of the other things too. And I'd like to go through them, but what I like to ask all my guests in the beginning is just like about one of your earliest musical memories.
Okay, well, when I was 10 years old, I went to a private school called Green Chimneys in Brewster, New York, on the borderline of New York and Connecticut, Danbury, Connecticut. And Thelonious Monk's daughter, Barbara, was also a student at the school. And her father, Thelonious Monk, the great jazz musician, he played 4 shows as a benefit for our school. And that was the most astounding thing I ever heard as a youngster. I heard all kinds of music, every category. when I was about that age. What regular kids heard, like the Stones and the Beatles and the
Right.
Kinks, and the Who and all that stuff, of course, and absorbed all that. But I also heard modern jazz, through Thelonious Monk first and live, and it was just like we didn't understand it, but the guy was a great performer too. He played with his elbows, and he was quite a showman. In addition to the music, so it was accessible to us because we could get into the show and then try to understand the music slowly but surely as we got older.
That's very
Now I
cool.
listen to them all the time.
And at 10 years old, you saw that?
10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that
incredible.
that would be and basically I was lucky. I had a lot of Manhattan access. My father had a business in Manhattan on 7th Avenue, and I would go to the Macy's Herald Square and play in the toy department and then the record department in the biggest store in the world. And basically, we had a lot of illustrious relatives. We had a great author, Sheldon Selznick, who wrote The History of Psychiatry, for example. But
Wow.
I got into really every area as a child. I had exposure to a lot of things sociologically.
That is really cool, man. Um, that's a great memory to have. And, so growing up, you're in New York City, right?
Yeah, well, we lived outside of New York City. We had my family house was in Nassau County, which a town called
Okay.
Oceanside, which was about a half hour from Manhattan. But I spent all my time in Manhattan once I traveled by myself. Once I was like 13 years old, I was going out, and another memory I had was hanging out with the Mothers of Invention at the Garrick Theater one afternoon when they were
Wow.
making a movie and meeting those guys and Frank Zappa, who I knew for his whole life. He knew me by name, and he was pretty much a mentor to me, along with Ruth Underwood and Ian Underwood from the group, and later Scott Tunis.
That's incredible, man. Um,
Yeah,
the,
people were open then.
yeah,
You'd go, and they'd let you come in. They weren't afraid of you. Now everything's gotten so protected and guarded and fenced and walled. I
exactly.
don't know
There's walls around everything.
how children that are growing up, or I should say like preteens and teenagers, are actually able to go out and meet people. Because they're so inaccessible to the public.
Yeah, you got to meet your heroes and expand your mind, and now, like you said, it's a lot of walls up there,
Well,
which
before I met Frank Zappa. I hadn't really. I'd heard him, and I bought something earlier. I think my friend and I both chipped in for Freak Out. My friend Mark, and we shared it. So I had heard of Frank Zappa, but I wasn't that familiar. So I wouldn't say a hero. He became a mentor later,
yeah,
you know. And as I met these people, then I would explore their music.
that's pretty cool, man.
It's kind of like the other way around.
Yeah. So talking about Alan Milman sect, the years kind of leading up to the 1977 release, the Punk Rock Christmas record. What influenced you to make a punk group, and how did the band come together?
Well, we've been doing music like that for years. We started, just regular guys. Well, I was never like an actual regular guy, but just like guys, singing and playing music together. At high school, and I got kicked out of high school in 10th grade, but that's a whole other story. But I still performed at the high school, even though I was kicked. I had been expelled. But we the day after the Stooges were on television, they were on Metro Media, this syndicated network. It was Channel 5 in New York, and they had broadcast the Cincinnati Pop Festival, and they called it Midsummer Rock, and it had Alice Cooper and the Stooges on it, and that was the famous Stooges performance where Iggy crawls out into the audience
Yeah.
on the crawls over the people, and they pass him around, and somebody gave him a gigantic jar of peanut butter
The
that he
peanut butter
that he
show.
smeared on his chest. But after watching that performance, I was very, very psyched, and it motivated me to, change our performances. We'd been playing like fraternity parties and that kind of thing, and we were a good rock and roll band. But then my performance went crazy. The next performance I did. I was rolling around in a garbage can with 100-foot mic cord,
I
and
love
then we got hired for like every Omega Gamma Delta fraternity party from then on.
it. That's awesome, man. You were corrupted by Iggy Pop. as you should be.
Yeah, and the Stooges, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
then I wound up hanging around with the Stooges a lot in Hollywood at Rodney's. Ironically, you talk about your heroes. That would be more in that particular area because I had thought about fantasized being in that element with the Stooges and the MC5 and the
right.
Velvet Underground, but that actually came true with the Dolls and the Stooges. The
So
Stooges were more my thing than the Dolls, but um, that was astounding to me to have access to those people.
so you wound up actually DJing at Rodney's place, right? In
Yes,
the, yeah,
yes,
and
exactly.
that's where you came to meet the Stooges, and you met the Dolls there too.
Yeah, I didn't just meet them though. They used to come in every night, so they were regulars, so we knew each other.
That's awesome. That is really
I
cool.
mean, my collaborator now, Evan Foster, made a record with Iggy Pop called Mars is for Martians, and they did a duet, and he toured with the Reform Stooges. So Evan and Iggy know each other professionally. I mean, I knew Iggy from the clubs and DJing and so forth, and Max's and Rodney's, but I doubt if he remembers me after meeting thousands of people. But Evan and he were working professionally, so they definitely know each other by
That's pretty
name.
cool, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have a go-to record that you have to play in every set?
Well, the regular stuff that people like and that I like to perform, it has to be both. I'm not going to play something that gets no reaction or something that I don't like to sing. Um, but and I won't tell you which the ones I don't want to tell you what I don't like to sing. I'll tell you what I do like to sing. I like Veil of Strange quite a bit.
Okay, okay.
I think that's been a perennial favorite, of like a song that's not as well known, like Stitches in My Head, I Want to Kill Somebody,
Right.
been covered by, including yourself, by like 8 people,
Yeah, that does get covered a lot, and I did cover
which
it on
I
my
think
last
is
record.
the most covered independent punk record ever made.
Could be possible, yeah. What is that band? Urge Overkill? Didn't they do a cover of?
Urge Overkill
Yeah.
found it on a cassette. We hung out with them a lot after that when they came to Seattle. Um, they found it on a cassette and they didn't even know the full name of the song. When they put it out on Stoll, they just printed Stitches and they just put my name. They didn't put Doug's name on it.
Uh,
Doug didn't give a shit. I said, Doug, do you want him to reinstate your name? But they'd already manufactured that thing. But if it went into another pressing, like, I said, do you care if they put your name on it? He goes, I don't really care. I
that's
mean,
funny.
people know that I wrote it.
That was like the early '90s, right? Like '92 or something.
Yeah,
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 they did.
approximately, yeah.
I mean, for a song, I don't know when you wrote it, but the record came out in '77. So like in
Yeah, I
nine,
wrote it in '77.
like I mean, that's got to be a kind of a thrill, right? To have someone
Well,
pay homage.
it was a surprise.
Yeah.
It's like this band from Chicago. I mean, we owned a record store, myself and Mo Schweinberg, one of my best friends. We opened a record store in Seattle. That's why I moved out here.
Yeah.
And I found out in the store, one of our other friends came in and said, "You know that Urge Overkill's doing your record?" I go, "No." But then
That's
I
cool.
called my lawyer.
That's awesome.
Which I really don't give a
It's
shit
funny.
about. Like Anal Babes are doing it in Norway. They just reformed, by the way. They put it out on a Norwegian box set, a live version and a studio version,
Oh
and
wow,
they're probably going to perform it on their current tour, I would think.
that's pretty cool, man. That's a great
But they
song.
they
Yeah.
don't really make a lot of money. It's like they sell like 1,000 copies of a box set. Or if it's
Yeah.
something really modest like that, I'm not going to worry about what the
Right.
royalties. But if somebody's doing it on a TV show, like we had the song "Nicotine Caffeine" licensed by Universal for House MD. It's in season 3, episode 8, I believe,
Cool.
and it's there in perpetuity, and it goes around the world, and they're showing that in reruns around the world constantly, and they're making a lot of money. So we had to get paid for that. That was back in 2008, but we got what we were supposed to get for that.
Yeah,
But
something of that
I don't.
magnitude, you should get paid,
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I don't really pursue anybody that makes a thousand or three or five or 300 pressing. They're not making any money. You're lucky if you break even.
Yeah, and tell me about it. A good thing. I'm glad you said that because I was hoping this wouldn't be an uncomfortable conversation. I'm just kidding.
Oh no, no
I'm
man, no
kidding.
man.
I'm messing with
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Don't get rough.
you. For anybody who doesn't know, I did cover "I Want to Kill Somebody," the Alan Milman song from 1977 on my latest record. But this isn't about me; it's
Well,
about Alan Milman, man.
it's actually Milman Kazam. It's
Milman
Al
Kazan.
Milman
Sorry,
and Doug
yeah.
Kazam.
That's right. Hey, I wanted to ask you the story with because I'm looking at my copy here. It's on Brits Records, and I know the Man Kazam stuff came out on Brits too. Is that like your
Yeah,
own?
that's just a combination of my name and Doug's name, which was short-lived.
Cool.
Prefer the Alan Milman sect. I usually write Alan Milman sect and Man Kazam so they know what it is.
I mean, but as far as Brits Records,
Brits was our manager's girlfriend's name. This Swedish American young woman, Brit.
okay. Well, it's got a good ring to it. Sounds legit.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we rhymed it with Blitz, a
Bl-
Brits Blitz release, that
I
kind of
like it.
thing.
And I
You know,
wanted.
and
Oh, go ahead.
go
Go ahead.
ahead,
I was wondering who is it? Larry Teich? Teich?
Taish.
Teich. Who is Larry
He
Teich?
was my father's stockbroker's secretary's son.
Okay, and was he actually on Teen Tour? Did he? Is that
Yes,
yeah?
he
Okay.
sings on Teen Tour. He also sings some backgrounds on Punk Rock Christmas.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, because I was trying to look
Larry
up.
Tice he's a 12-year-old who was a child of somebody my father knew, and his mother was like stage mothering him. He was originally a classical pianist. He played at Carnegie Hall, and he was very talented. He never sang before. I just told him, "Okay, Larry, you just start singing this," and he started. And he cooperated, and then when the record came out, he was in junior high and he started getting into fist fights all the time because it went to his head or something.
Oh no, well, Larry Teich will live on forever. What a legend.
Yeah, I don't usually hear about Larry Teich, um, but he was a cool kid, and that was something we did for like one record, and then it became a little too much for him or something.
That's pretty funny. I was trying to find out more about Larry Teich and I couldn't find anything. I'm like, okay, well now I know. Uh,
Well, he came from I don't know much about him except for that particular encounter doing the record and rehearsing, and we were going to do something else with him, but then he started getting into the fights in school, so that sort of went down the drain.
Larry couldn't handle it. All right.
No, Larry couldn't handle that level of success.
Poor little Larry Teich.
Poor Larry.
How?
If you're listening, Larry, hello, Larry.
Yeah.
He must be a middle-aged man by now.
Actually, we got him on the line now. Larry, are you there? No, I'm kidding.
Whoa, wow, this is your life.
Yeah. How long were the recording sessions for Punk Rock Christmas?
Well, I suppose it was in the fall. I know it got released in the middle of October for the Christmas season, but it must have been recorded like within like a month or so prior to that.
Cool, cool. And then, I mean, if you go to 78, you got Man Kazam, right? So it's you and Doug again,
Well,
just
it's
like.
basically the same thing, except we changed the name, and we had a few different people in and out of the rhythm section. Very, very good players, though. We have two of them on the live album. One of the guys played with us for a long time, and that was Billy Goldman. The other gentleman was I'd have to look up his name. He was not in the band for a very long time, but he's very good on the album.
Yeah, the record's great. I mean, it is kind of like an extension of the Alan Milman sect, it feels like, but it's almost got like more of a
Oh no, no,
sci-fi
no, no,
kind of
not that record. That the EP you're talking about, the Spankathon EP.
spankathon. Yeah.
That's Billy Goldman and Robbie Wise on drums.
Okay, cool, cool.
And we knew these guys. They were from our hometown, and they were very good players. And this might sound strange, but I'm gonna talk about something that I never really talk about. We were all very influenced by King Crimson, which might sound very strange because we didn't play like 13/8 time signatures
No, no,
and do the kind of complexities that King Crimson did, but we were inspired by King Crimson.
that's pretty
But
wild. I didn't expect that.
Billy could play all that. He actually wound up playing with John Wetton on cruise ships for years.
No shit. I have a
Yeah.
copy in my hand here of Man Kazam Spankathon. I'm actually afraid to ask you what influenced the title track, but
Oh well, it's basically like getting paddled in gym or fraternity paddling, that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Do you know anyone named Joel? Because somebody signed my copy with his phone
Jo-
number on the top.
Joel Peskin was our manager.
Oh, okay. Well, I have his phone number here. Maybe we should call him. But it says,
I don't think that's his phone number anymore.
oh, bummer. I always thought it was funny.
When did you get his phone number?
It's written on the top of the sleeve. It says Joel and then his phone number. And then it says, this record has
Where
been,
did you get that?
I bought it at Generation Records like, I don't know, 15 years ago.
And Generation Records is in New Jersey.
New York City.
Oh yeah, well Generation Records. Where was that located?
It's by Bleecker. It's by Bleecker Bob's, actually. Well, what was Bleecker
Oh yeah,
Bob's?
okay. I think
Yeah.
it's like a block up from Bleecker Bob's,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
going east.
That's right. And it says,
Okay, I think I remember that place.
I remember getting this one. And you ever hear the Valves for Add-Offs Only? I got that in the Valves
No,
single. It's pretty cool. They're from Scotland. They're a cool band. But it
no. I
has,
mean, there's certain punk rock records I like, but I'm not a punk rock record collector.
I always just thought,
I like the Buzzcocks a lot. I
oh,
spent
they're
some time
great.
with Steve Diggle at one point. We
Really?
had a really long conversation, me and another friend of mine and some other people that went to the show, and we went back to his room and talked for hours.
That's really cool.
I'm really influenced by the Buzzcocks. I thought they were the best punk band I ever heard.
Yeah, I think musically and the harmony and melody wise, yeah, I mean they're fantastic, man.
They're great, and Diggle's still touring as the frontman right now because Pete
Yeah, yeah.
Shelley
Pete
passed
passed
away.
away. Yeah, sadly.
I was really inspired by the Buzzcocks. I like their attitude. I like the guitar. I like the rhythm.
Oh yeah.
I've seen them innumerable times. I think I've seen them virtually every time they played in Seattle since I've lived here.
You spent some time in the UK. Did you ever see him there?
No, when we went to the UK, we were usually shopping for a record deal, and
Yeah.
that's a whole interview in itself. But I'm writing a book right now, and it's my musical history and the history of music from the Brill Building to punk rock. So
That's
it will all
awesome,
be in
man.
the book.
I can't wait to read it. So you got records coming out. You're doing a book. I think that's great, man. So everybody keep an eye on that. Um, yeah, this man Kazam record, it's got Joel's number, and then it says this record has been played on WNEW occasionally. I thought that was pretty
Is
funny.
that right? Because I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I
I'll
didn't
send
know
you a
that.
picture of it after the interview.
Oh
It's
no!
pretty
Give it to
funny.
me. I'll give you a replacement original copy, but you have to give that to me.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair trade. I'll do that for you.
But
Um,
in any event, Joel, that number would probably be his parents' phone number. He was living at home at that time. He's probably only like 20 years old,
that's awesome. What are the odds? That's great.
and he's a real go getter. He was basically selling rock T-shirts, and he had a DeLorean that he saved up money and bought.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Joel's a real character. He's a good friend of Doug's. I haven't seen him for a while. The last time I saw him was when his grandfather, unfortunately, and my father were in the same hospital in Long Island Jewish Hospital.
oh man,
I saw him in the '80s. We just ran into each other in the hospital,
wow,
passing in the hallway.
that's wild, man. Yeah, we'll switch copies. That would be funny.
Yeah, that'd be totally cool. But that's probably his parents' old phone number. From the house where he grew up in Baldwin.
That's great. Um, I wanted to ask another question about a song from Spankathon, "Love with Machinery." Where do we come up with this one?
Well,
It's a
that's
wild tune.
basically a science fiction kind of thing. It's like, are you familiar with what a cyborg is?
I think so. Yeah, it's like a half
It's
human,
like
half person.
half
I mean,
machine.
machine. Yeah, yeah.
So it's inspired by the cyborgs and by Fritz Lang type of imagery like Metropolis.
Okay, yeah, okay. Now I'm with it. Yeah. Okay, a little.
I was never a science fiction bug, but I like certain science fiction things in terms of concept, and visual and style and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. So in this time period, okay, with Man Kazam, Alan Milman sect, you're in the thick of it in New York City,
Oh, I
right?
should also mention before we move on, I should mention that we were very I was very into Roxy music. I saw every
Oh, cool.
Roxy music tour in the U.S. and that song was very influenced by Roxy music.
I could see it for sure. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a great tune. That's a great EP. Maybe we should check it out. There's a comp, right, with all this stuff with the Alan Milman
Yes,
second
there's a
man.
comp. I don't know. It was on Flotation Records. You could try to find that online or find the copy
I
online.
think it was like the
If
early
somebody,
2000s, isn't it?
yeah. There's no. It was like the late 2000s, but
Oh, okay.
you can find it online.
Cool, cool. Yeah, everybody check
It's
that out.
called Alan Millman Second Man Kazam Stitches on
Yeah,
Flotation Records.
very cool.
There'll be another better compilation coming out down the road.
No.
We're gonna remaster the stuff again and improve the sound as much as we can because there's a lot more technology now.
Right. I'm pumped to hear these the live show from 78 it's from.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
that's gonna be cool.
it's a good recording in itself, but there's a couple of things that we want to remaster, and we don't really want to change it and make it slick or anything. That would be impossible. But we could make it slicker than it's going to be. Like there's things that you can do where you can really make everything sound like it's current. In other
Right.
words, technologically. But we don't want to do that. We just want to get rid of any problem in the sound, like noise and
Right. Yeah. Is it a
glitches and stuff.
well the cool thing is you can do that now because a lot of the is it a board recording?
It was recorded on a similar stereo tape recorder like the Velvet Underground did. Live in Max's Kansas City. It
Oh
was
cool. Yeah.
recorded
Yeah.
on a stereo Sony tape recorder like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it'll sound cool. The things you can do nowadays are insane with some of this stuff.
Oh no,
Yeah.
but you don't really want to be slick though,
No, no, no.
because
You can't do
that
too
takes
much.
all the grit out of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, we want it to be gritty but listenable. In other words, so you can hear everything.
Right. Well, that's what
That's
makes it
really the
fun.
concept.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the audience was very good. We had a great audience, and Terry Ork attended that show who
Oh,
was the guy who put out the first punk rock records in the world, like Piss Factory and Love Comes in Spurts, and
oh yeah.
Patti Smith and Television, and basically is responsible for the earliest punk records out in New York.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I was going to ask you about being in the thick of it in the mid to late 70s in New York City. What are some shows you saw that just blew you away?
Well, I used to go to CBGB in Max's Kansas City all the time. There was like my neighborhood bars, so to speak. So I saw everybody at those places. I saw the Ramones when they were playing to a pool table and three people in the room.
Yeah. It's crazy to see how far
I
that could
saw
go.
Talking Heads playing in Mickey Ruskin's Lower Manhattan Ocean Club, which was a restaurant concert venue. Well, I wouldn't say concert venue. They had live music and it was a full charge restaurant. And that was
Wow.
in the financial district. He was the original owner of Max's Kansas City. So we saw Talking Heads there, and I did a little bit of mescaline for that. That was kind of an interesting show.
What year was that?
I Either late 77 or early 78. It's
That's
hard for
cool,
me to
man.
remember.
Um, wow, that's
I'd
cool.
say probably late 77.
Late 70s. Okay, cool. Saw the Ramones playing to nobody. I mean, that's crazy, man. What a great time to be bopping around New York,
Yeah,
man.
and I love Blondie.
Oh
My
yeah.
sister, Robin, had never gone to rock and roll shows ever. She went to the opera and the ballet with my parents and Broadway musicals. I would go to the box office and get the tickets for the family, and I was invited to go, but I'd go, no, Dad, I don't want to go. So, and then my parents said, "Oh, your sister wants to go see some rock and roll," and I said, "Okay, well, I got that together real quick, and I took her to Wings at Madison Square Garden
Yeah.
and Rolling Stones and a show with Iggy Pop on the Lust for Life tour with David Bowie on keyboards and Blondie opening up in
Oh, that's
'77.
a show right there, man. That's awesome.
Well, she saw the best right out of the box.
That's cool. Where was that show?
That was at the Academy of Music on 14th Street, which sort of took over where the Fillmore East left off.
That's awesome, man.
And I also saw the New York Dolls at the Fillmore East when it reopened. It was called the NFB, New Fillmore East, in New Year's Eve, 72, 73. And that was a great show. I was full on tripping for that. And I was looking at the Dolls, on stage with Christmas trees and lights.
Yeah.
And it looked like Jagger and Richards on acid.
I think I actually read about that show in Nina Antonia's book about Johnny Thunders in Cold Blood.
Seriously.
Yeah, and the crowd alone seemed like its own attraction, for those
Look,
kind
I
of
got to tell
things.
you, the Dolls would do. Even people that know a lot about the Dolls don't know about this unless they were from New York and they were going to these shows. At the end of the show, they would do like this 8-10 minute song called "Endless Party," where they'd let anybody come up and dance.
That's awesome. Did you hop on stage for Endless Party?
No.
No, no.
I hopped on stage with the Buzzcocks and sang "Oh Shit" with them. Got on the cover of NME, and it's on two bootlegs.
That's awesome. That's really cool. This book is going to be
That was
terrific,
more my
man.
thing, you know.
Yeah, I can't wait to. Yeah, I can't wait to read the book. It's all going to be in the book, people.
It will
Um,
be in the book. The book is going to have a longer title, but the beginning of the title is going to be "I Was There."
I love it. I was there by Alan Milman. Um,
And Dennis White. I'm co-writing the book with Dennis White.
in uh, in 1980, there's a single that came out by Buddy Love called
That's right.
Sheila.
And that was called Sheila, and that was a hit on WNEW FM for a year in medium rotation. It was on everybody's show every day except for Scott Muni.
I
I could
remember.
never understand why Scott Muni wouldn't play it. You know, maybe you had to bring him a little present or something. We weren't bringing him a little present.
Oh
These
no.
people these people played us because they liked the record.
Yeah,
You know, so we weren't getting into that kind of crap. You know, I'm not saying he did that. I'm saying it's kind of funny that everyone on the station played that except for him.
that's
That's what I'm
interesting.
saying.
Yeah, I mean, I remember somebody gave me like a compilation of the Uncle Floyd show, and Buddy Love was on it.
Yeah, I remember that day
Yeah,
when we all went over there, and those guys, you know, they were doing my song that I wrote with Doug, and you know, and well, there were two songs that were Milman Kazam songs. I think it was Sheila and Party
Party
Girl, which
Girl.
was
Yeah.
the B side.
Okay, so that was one of my questions because I see I'm holding the single here, produced by Milman, right? Musical supervision, Alan Milman. All songs composed and arranged. Okay, so yeah, those are your songs. That's really cool. And
Well, my songs with Doug, yeah.
yeah, with Doug, yeah. And what I think is so cool about it is like the punk records that we saw in 77 and 78 from you, Punk Rock Christmas and
Well, this
Spankathon.
record was inspired, and Michael Brecker plays sax on it. Ronnie Guy plays organ from the David Johansen group. It was basically the closest thing I've ever had to an actual hit record. It was a radio hit.
Right.
And you know, basically, I do want to interject though before we continue talking about that. That Doug, you know, has gone solo, and his solo stuff is superb, and I highly recommend to anyone who wants to check it out. It's Doug Khazzam, and you can find his stuff online. I don't know his particular websites, but I'm sure if you put in Doug Kazam, it's a very unique name. You'll find his music.
Very cool. That's great that he's still playing.
And I'm also writing songs with him for solo records as well. And he's a great singer, really good guitar player, and really excellent songwriter. So I highly recommend his stuff. That's the Doug Kazam commercial.
Brought to you by Doge. And now
And Doug cannot say that I didn't mention him in this interview. I did not forget you, Doug.
Sheila and Party Girl, like sugary sweet. This is like the power pop style of Alan
Well,
Milman.
no, it's not really like that. What it really is like, and it was a very big passion with me. I was the biggest Phil Spector freak in the world. I think I had like almost every record Phil Spector ever made on vinyl,
Yeah.
and I loved. I still love Phil Spector's work. Of course, I don't love him because he's a fucking
Yeah.
crazy
He's
murderer,
insane. Yeah.
you know. And you know, I know people that had strange experiences with him. Like I spoke to Johnny Ramone about that, you know. But when Johnny talked to me about it, it didn't really sound that outrageous. Just that he was kind of an asshole.
Yeah. Do you think, because like there's like interviews with Dee Dee Ramone where Dee Dee's saying he held a gun to my head. I mean, like, do you think something like
Well,
that?
I'll tell you, I knew Johnny, you know, and he never told me about Spector holding a gun to any of their heads.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. He definitely pointed guns at people and fired guns in the studio. But what Johnny told me, and this sounds a lot less serious, was when they went over to Spector's mansion, he wouldn't let him play plays pinball machines.
Why?
But you have to understand, Johnny was like not, he was the definition of a regular guy. He didn't make a big deal out of anything.
Yeah.
It's like he's not really hyping things up. It's just like you ask him a question, he'll give you a straight answer.
Yeah. Well, I also heard a story about that whole thing where like Spectre made him play the first chord of Rock and Roll High
Well,
School.
that's
Like
true.
that would drive me insane, man.
I
That
mean, it might be exaggerated, but that's definitely true.
that's
But
pretty funny.
that's how Phil Spector recorded. I don't know if he heard things that only certain dogs and cats heard. Because I mean, I have really good ears
Yeah.
in the studio. I'm always hearing some track that the people that I'm collaborating with can't hear for
Oh.
some reason, or they didn't notice. And they go, "How did you hear that?" I go, "Because I'm just focusing on that one thing." I mean, I have a technique of how I hear in the studio. I get very hyper focused,
Do you
but
think that's a skill that's acquired, or it's a skill that
I
you
think
kind of
it's
just have?
completely acquired.
Yeah.
Completely acquired. You could be taught how to engineer. I'm not an engineer. In other words, like I could put my hands on the board and adjust the attenuation or the decibel level.
All right. The phone somehow cut out, so we're gonna get back to where we were going. Sorry about that, Alan. But
Oh, no problem.
we were talking about having a critical ear, being able to hear things in songs.
Yeah, I think it's totally something that's a natural ability because I work with people that are experts at production and engineering. So I mean, these people are incredibly talented and they have great ears themselves, but people hear different things for some reason. I mean, it's where your attention or your hearing gravitates toward.
Do you think that yours has gotten better over time?
Yeah, well, I mean, just like anything else, when you have more experience, you know what to listen for, and you know what the outcome should be. And people have different methods of working. I like to cut really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that want everything really precise. I don't really. That's not really my philosophy. I'd rather have something with a minor mistake on it and great feel and really exciting rather than something that's perfect where you suck some of the spontaneity out of it by redoing it.
Yeah, you're sucking the fun out of it, and that's kind of what rock and roll is based on. It kind of goes to like what we were talking about before about knowing when not to play and what makes a guitar player great.
Yeah, it's
You know,
like if you, well, Phil Spector is just the opposite. Phil Spector tries to get a feel, by duplicating or having three or four of each instrument, and making everything huge, which
right?
is definitely what his sound is. But what people don't understand about Phil Spector is he can do it with a smaller group of instrumentation too and voices, like Instant Karma, for example. That does not have three of everything.
Right. That's
It has a
interesting.
lot of expert echo added in the right places, in the right rhythms, in the right slapback time degree.
So he's
If
kind
you
of doing
understand what
what
I mean.
he's kind of talking. He's doing what we were talking about with guitars with production, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. But what I'm saying is he could do it huge. That's what he was famous for. The walls. When he started out, of course, it was like more just orchestration. Then he developed his own Wagnerian.
I like the
It's very hard
Wagner.
to
Yeah.
pronounce. It's German and English. Wagnerian type of sorry for the stammering
No, you're good.
type of uh, musical embellishment, should we say, with the production. So it was like a Wagner opera combined with electric guitars and heavy beats. So it's a very strange juxtaposition of
Right.
like Ride of the Valkyries with Be My Baby, you know.
That's wild.
And then you had this great arranger who scored all this stuff, whose name was Jack Nietzsche. And as a matter of fact, I just listened to some interviews with him. He worked on a lot of the prime period Brian Jones era Rolling Stones records too in Hollywood at RCA Music of the World.
Oh wow.
I think that was the name of the studio, but it was definitely RCA. But and that was Dave Hassinger behind the board, the guy who produced "I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night."
Oh,
Get
it's a
me to the
great
world on
tune.
time by the
Yeah.
Electric Prunes
Yeah.
and Mass in F minor. That's a whole other digression. But getting back to Phil Spector, um, he had a completely unique sound. And at one time, like pre-Beatles, every producer was trying to copy him in rock and roll,
Right.
and they couldn't really reproduce him because you had to have the instinct. It was very visceral. Also, you couldn't really counterfeit Phil Spector very well. Some people did it better than others, but it was a predominant sound. Like I don't know if I don't really listen to Prince, but I did when it came out. I checked it out, and it was like an ephemeral kind of thing. I don't listen to any of it now, but Around the World in a Day was like his anomaly album.
Yeah.
He's like more unlike anything he normally did. So I might put that on once in a while, but I'm not a big Prince nut or anything.
Yeah, it's just amazing that you could give someone another producer the exact same equipment, but they couldn't produce the same kind of
No, the thing
sound.
with the thing with Prince is like what I was going to say was when he was out, everyone was trying to copy him.
Right. Yeah.
Sheena Easton and Vanity, and all these records kept coming out that had the Prince sound. That whatever. What was that song by the Bangles? It was Prince song too.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
I can't remember
I don't know.
offhand.
But that was just the time, and people were
You
trying to
had Monday in the it had Monday in the title.
Mm.
Manic Monday. That
Oh
was another
yeah,
Prince
okay, I know
record.
that
Yeah,
song. Yeah.
and the Bangles had great 4-part harmony, but the drummer sucked. I don't know if she played on the records, and I have no problem with female musicians. I think they're great when they're great, but
Right.
when they suck, I'll say they suck, and I'm not going to say they're great. I'll say the same thing about a guy.
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to say a female musician's great because she's a female.
No, you're just calling it as it is.
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty much. They were some of the best singers around at the time, but I think they should have had not a male drummer, just somebody who played a little heavier.
someone better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of songs that are bashing, okay, 1988, Duck in the it's labeled as Duck in the Ponds, but isn't it supposed to be Duck in the Pond if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, it's singular. But the stupid name is because they wouldn't take they wouldn't take the original name, which was the Mod Shades,
Was
and
it?
there was another name we went by before that called the Griefs, Greefs, which were perfectly good names. And then he said, make a list of names and we'll choose a new one, to get the record released. We licensed it to them.
Yeah,
You
this is
know,
Big Beat.
I yeah,
Yeah,
I don't even want to comment on what I thought that record deal was, but I didn't think the record deal with Big Beat was very kosher in my opinion.
not a fair
Which is
deal. Yeah,
well, it's not a matter of that. I just thought they did weird things.
yeah.
And I'm not going to make any other accusations. I'm just going to say I was not happy with that deal.
I mean, I know it's okay if you don't. Can we talk about the record? Because I really like the record.
Oh yeah, you could talk
Okay,
about the
cool.
record, sure.
And we were talking about aliens before.
Oh yeah, well that was Jeff. Jeff got inspired to make up this story about space rabbits transmitting music to us. So he
Uh,
spoke to that tabloid in Florida and got them to buy the story.
So this is an actual story that was okay. So just for people, because there's no visual here, I'm holding the Duck in the Ponds record on Big Beat from 1988, and on the back there's a news article titled "UFO Aliens Made a Success as Rock Musicians," and there's a whole article.
Well, and I contributed to that story too. It was about space rabbits from Pluto transmitting music to us telepathically.
Yes, my hands feel like paws. I'm being played through, declares Jeff Webb. we com-
Jeff, what?
Jeff Webb, WEBB.
Oh, Jeff Webb. I
Yeah.
don't. I think on the actual record we called him Sir Jeffrey Pollock.
We composed songs before, but not anything of this nature. Count Cage adds Count Cage, the lead singer, but the lead singer is you, Howlin' Alan Milman. You're labeled
Yeah, well,
as.
I guess we were changing the names along the way. I got to tell you a funny part about when the tabloid got published. When you go to the supermarket and you see it next to the cash register, the tabloids.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went into a supermarket called Pathmark, and what I did was I grabbed every copy that I could carry and stole them all and walked out.
Those tabloids like next to the checkouts are the funniest. Like it
Yeah,
was
next to the checkout counter, I just grabbed batches of them and piled them up and walked out. Nobody did anything.
That's great. The article is really funny, and I was wondering if like this was made up or that's so funny. It was actually printed.
Well, no, we actually were getting telepathic songs from Space Rabbit.
It's got to be true because it's
Well,
printed in a
trust me,
paper.
it's got to be
It's
true.
got to be true.
You read it. It was in the paper. It has to be
It's
true.
here in black and white, right here.
And believe me, it's more believable than some of the stuff that's printed now politically.
No, yeah, that's for sure.
It
That's
has
for
more
sure.
veracity than Elon Musk and Donald Trump and their whole kitchen cabinet put together.
I'll believe the aliens made the rock musicians success before I believe them.
Well, we have the aliens to thank, and we got tens of dollars from that album, tens of dollars.
Tens of by
We
big
we, we bought
money.
pizza. We bought pizza. We bought we bought Chinese food. We really lived it up.
The people need to know on the record: does Alan Milman believe in UFOs?
Do I believe in them? I don't know. I really, it's kind of painful to formulate an answer to that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
If somebody shows me irrefutable evidence, it's just kind of difficult to construct evidence because there's so many fake things that are
Yeah.
manufactured, and it's so easy to fabricate something that how does one ascertain whether it's fabricated?
Yeah. Well, now with the AI and stuff, you can't even tell what's real or not anymore. I mean, they can make things that look so real.
I'm beginning to be able to delineate that because like there's something on YouTube right now where they have all these. Okay, at first I thought it was really cool. There's this band that sounds like the Birds, and I thought maybe they were just copying the Birds very heavily,
Right.
and came up with this lost album from '65 or something or '66. But then I figured out when they started posting a lot of these bands that sounded like other bands that it finally occurred to me this is AI.
That's
So I
crazy.
can actually detect AI sometimes now.
Well, now you've got a critical ear for AI. You're evolving.
I'm evolving as the Space Rabbits predicted that I would. I am
In
actually up.
1988.
I wish I was up for a Trump cabinet post. I mean, this is what I crave, Ryan.
Maybe you could be like the head of the DOD or something, you know?
I want to be the head of music
Of yeah,
manufacturing.
of rock. You could be like the of
I want to be the head. I want to be the punk rock cabinet member. I want to be the chancellor of punk rock.
I think you have the credentials, my man.
I know, and I think that if Robert Kennedy could get confirmed, so can I.
Do you have any worms in your brain?
Not recently.
Okay, good. All right. So that's one thing you got going for you.
Worms in your brain. That sounds like a good song title. Write that
Can you write
down.
that down? Yeah, thank you.
You write that down. I think you should
Yeah.
write worms in your
All
brain.
right, you got that's an easy one. This album we're
Well,
talking about.
I'm giving people song titles, things that people mention all the time. I go, write that down. If they're a songwriter, I go, write that down.
I've got a
And that's
list in my phone of just thing or like
yeah, that's a
of
good
band
place to
names.
keep it.
Yeah, yeah. You do a
Sorry,
little
we're
note.
talking.
No, no, no. That's okay. You do a little note section in your phone and just write this stuff down because you forget it. You know.
Why is that? Why is there a ringing in the background? Does that mean your battery's dying?
No, I'm good on the battery. I don't know. I think I'm getting like it's like when I get a text or something.
Oh, you get a lot of texts, don't you?
Oh man, I'm just a popular guy, Alan. What can I say? But I want I don't want to
Well,
talk.
be careful. Be careful if they're like teenage girls from Seattle. One
No,
congressman got arrested for that.
that's a no go. But let's
I'm
talk.
only kidding.
I know, I know. Let's talk about the 1988 album Lost World by Duck in the Ponds. Because we've heard the punk rock Alan Milman in 77, 78. We heard a little power pop in
Well,
80.
Lost World and what was the other song that started off the other side? It was
Oh,
Lost
On the
World.
Corner Again is one of my
No, no, no,
favorites.
not on the corner again. A Lost World, and there was
Alone,
another.
Wild About You, Wrong, Little
No,
Eva, Not
it'd be
My
the first
Scene.
song. Do you have the album in front of you?
Yeah, the first song is Lost World on side one and on
What's
side
the first song on side two?
On the Corner Again.
Okay, read each song to me, please.
Okay, so side one is Lost World, Alone,
Yeah,
All right, Alone, Wild
Oh,
About.
Alone.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. That
Okay, Alone and Lost World are probably the best songs on there.
I like
I,
Wrong. Too.
Wrong, yeah, and Wrong and On the Corner again.
Yeah. What? So this just has such garage influence on it, man. Like
Well,
what were you listening
the
to?
influence for Wrong is Love.
Yeah, I could hear it for sure. Yeah, that's great.
I have finally met Arthur Lee. My friend was
Really?
Arthur Lee's cousin, so she took us to see the Reformed Love at Town Hall, and I hung out with Arthur Lee. But he was very, very busy because he was signing papers and hanging out with fans and selling merch.
Yeah.
So I only got to talk to him for a couple of minutes, but I thanked him for his inspiration. And that was my friend, the late Mildred Riley, who was his cousin. They were both from Memphis originally, actually.
Okay, so that's where I'm calling you from. So I'm in the land
Wow,
of Elvis and
wow.
barbecue, man. Yeah.
Well, to me, it's like, yeah, it's more my musical influence is more Arthur Lee than Elvis. But
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
oh, you know what I mean. You know what I mean, Ryan.
I
Thank
know
you
what
very
you
much.
mean, baby.
Thank you
I
very
know what
much.
you mean, baby. Come on.
Thank you very much. I can't eat fried food no more. My doctor told me I got to go on the stroke diet. I can only have fried chicken twice a month, and no red meat. No red meat.
Oh
You know
no.
what it's like? You know that chicken. It don't taste like hamburger. Thank you very much.
That was great.
It was
uh,
all right.
so in the early '90s, to tell me, like you co-owned a record store, right?
Yes. Well, I met Moshe Weinberg through a mutual friend, Gary Schrank, or I think through Gary Schrank. Yeah. Um, but some of my friends from Seattle were living in New York at the time. Moshe had been in and out of New York. He went to school there. He went back to New York. And Dan Israel was living, who was from Seattle, was originally Moshe's friend since childhood, who also comes from Seattle, who lived in New York at the time. So those two guys lived in New York, and I met Moshe through Gary Schrank,
Okay.
who's another friend of ours from New York.
So like
And
no,
we decided to open a record store while we were living in New York, and we were going to either open it in the East Village in Manhattan, but the rents were too high, so we figured we could open a record store in Seattle, and the overhead would be much lower. So we did it in Seattle. I went out to Seattle, checked out the area, liked it on Thanksgiving '90, and then we finally found the location, and we opened in '91 in downtown Seattle.
very cool. What was the name of the store?
It was called Bedazzled Discs, Bedazzled Discs.
You know, it's wild when you think about like where you were in '77 in New York when all that stuff was going on, and then you're opening a record store in Seattle in the early '90s where this boom of music is about to
Yeah,
just.
it's kind of strange, you know. I have this habit of being in the glam in L.A., which used to call glitter in America. You know, at Rodney's in '73. So I have a habit of showing up in every scene.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I worked at
I
a
don't know
record
how
store.
that happened, but I can't say I mind.
No, hey, man, I wish you'd come to Memphis. Maybe I can sell a few more records. Uh,
Well, I could come to Memphis, but I'd rather have you come to Seattle.
I think I'd rather come to Seattle too. Uh,
I
uh,
wish I would have gone to Memphis like, many years ago.
yeah, I mean, there's a rich musical history here, man. It's very cool. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, and also being Jewish, I kind of think still might be a degree of anti-Semitism, maybe not in Memphis, but in the South in general.
the South is a strange place, but Memphis is a good pocket of open-minded
I'm sure
people.
Memphis would not be as redneck as
No,
the rural parts,
yeah, it
which I would
gets,
never go to.
dude, it gets dicey in some of those parts, man.
Well, the Ku Klux Klan, they just ruin it for everybody, you know.
You know, well, it's a real thing. You know, it's sad.
I
Uh,
know it's sick.
it
It's
is.
totally
It
sick.
really is. You know, going back to on a lighter note, I worked at a record store for years, and we had like some unusual regulars, people who would come in all the time. Where like honestly, you couldn't make these people up. Did you have any unusual
Oh
regulars?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's kind of like like where I live now. It's kind of like an apartment building and a mental institution all rolled into one.
And it,
That describes a record store too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there were
It was
people they'd
kind of
come in
like
every day.
most yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I do the same thing, but I love record stores.
Me too. Yeah, but
You
I'm not
know,
weird about it.
no, no, no. You know, what Moshe was saying was when we went to see, we used to get movie passes and give them out in the store from promotional firms or PR firms or whatever. Um, we had a pass to see High Fidelity, you know, the movie with
Oh
John
yeah, John
Cusack.
Cusack. Yeah,
Yeah, Cusack. So he said that I was like Jack Black and he was like Cusack, I guess.
there's some good
But
moments in that
anyway,
movie.
you know, we had certain characteristics like that we shared with other record store owners. But I will tell you one thing: people that own record stores together, you know, your buddies first, and then you go and start a business, and then by the end of the business, you don't want to talk to each other anymore, and you want to kill each other.
Yeah.
Now, we wanted to kill each other sometimes when we had the store, but after the store, we remained friends, which are the only two guys, us, out of all the record store owners I know in Seattle that actually remain friends. Everybody else hates each other.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it's different when you start getting in the business with,
Well, you know, whatever reason, that's one of the reasons musical differences, business differences,
yeah.
personality, you know, differences, whatever. But it usually winds up bad, but we wound up maintaining a friendship regardless of all these factors.
I think it's a great ending to that.
And I want
I'm
to tell you
happy.
something else. The book is going to contain a 12, 13-page interview that we did with my book collaborator years ago with Dennis White, like from 4 years ago, whatever. That's the whole thing will be republished in the book.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Um, Man, we've covered pretty much like your musical career, your career as a record
Well, I just
owner.
wanted to say that, you know, the Alan Millman sec will continue, and it's not going to be like ongoing constantly. It will records will appear live in studio as they're written and recorded,
Good.
and the live recordings will be you know, discovered and released as whatever we can use will come out.
Very cool. Yeah. So people can look forward to a live show from Max's from 1978.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely, that will be the next release.
that's cool.
And
And then,
there's also other live recordings that we're seeing if they're suitable quality to release.
cool. And
And then
then
we're going to do a new 4 song EP
I love
that
that.
Doug and Evan will both be on, and Eric, and we're pretty sure who the drummer is going to be, but we don't want to say until it happens. But be a damn good drummer.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. You guys are getting back and playing. With every guest, I like to do like some rapid fire questions at the end, just some
Oh, sure.
silly ones. We'll have some fun with it.
Okay.
And then we'll call it. This was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for coming on on my show,
Oh,
man.
my
It
pleasure.
was really cool. All right, so rapid fire questions for Alan Millman. Toilet paper, over or under?
Oh, under.
Oh wow, okay, you're going under. What's the last movie you watched?
Well, I was watching this movie when you originally called Times Square.
Time. Oh yeah. Wait, didn't they have the? I think I have the soundtrack for that. It's like a
Oh
double
yeah, yeah. The
LP. Yeah,
soundtrack is a lot more common than the
yeah.
movie.
Than the movie. That's right. Yeah. Who would have won in an arm wrestling match? Wayne Kramer or Ron Ashton?
Um. Well, that would probably vary according to what year it was. When because you know, Wayne Kramer got busted and he had to serve time, so he probably worked out a lot more than Ron
Yeah,
Ashton.
that's a good thought. You're right. He was probably
I
pumping
mean,
some
and
iron.
I don't know anything about Ron Ashton being physical in a fight, you know, or play fight or whatever. I don't have any information about that, but I'm sure Wayne Kramer could fight if he was in prison.
I'm sure. I'm sure. All right, so we're undecided, but I think it was a good enough explanation.
I'd say Wayne
When
probably.
okay, you're going Wayne. When you're done with a shopping cart, do you return it to the vestibule?
Hell no, I have enough trouble getting at, you know, in my current condition. I mean, I can write songs like, you know, for 24 hours in a row. I'm being absurd, but I can write songs perpetually, you know, and do music and be in a studio. But I can't carry two 20-pound bags and return a shopping cart simultaneously.
No judgment here. It's just what's the best live show you've
Well, I
ever
can still
seen?
kick your ass.
I don't deny that.
I'm just kidding.
I'll be in the cart vestibule. You got to catch me
You'll
first.
wait in the car with the doors locked.
What's the best live show you've ever seen?
Okay, that's I have the answer prepared for this because I think about that a lot. Okay, it would be several shows. Okay, David Bowie in '72. I saw two shows on that tour. David Bowie in '73 and the Spiders from Mars. I saw two shows in '73. That ranks the best, tied with the Who in 1967 and the Who in 1968. And you have to bear in mind that this is not just music. I'm rating it on the basis of music, theatricality, energy, intensity, spectacle. All various criteria. You know
Right.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's like the whole package. It's not just music. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's how spectacular the show was, whether it was a confluence of all of that. So I'd see all of that, and possibly I would include in the tie the Dam's first show in America, which I saw at CBGB.
Wow. That's amazing. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for that one.
Well, I was kicking the side of this board on the side of the stage. It fell off eventually. I had a
What?
lot of pent up energy during that show.
It's a good show to get it out at. That's for sure.
Oh, they were so great.
Oh, they had to be blistering, man.
Yeah, and I that's the original Damned. When
Yeah.
we went to England, me and Doug, we went to Sounds Magazine and we smoked hash in the closet with the guitarist who joined the Damned later, Lou. He was also in Public Enemy,
Yeah.
and John Moss, who was in the Damned at that time and went on to Culture Club.
Cool. That's awesome. What's a band you wish you could have seen you never saw, but you wish you could have
On the
seen?
Velvet Underground.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
I
Um,
was too young.
yeah, that would have
I
been a
don't
cool
you
show.
don't usually say that too young.
Did you ever?
That's your job,
Yeah, I
Ryan,
know.
not
That's
my
me. I
job.
know, man. Did you ever see Lou Reed though?
Oh yeah, I saw
Yeah.
Lou Reed's first solo show at Alice Tully
Oh,
Hall.
that's cool. Yeah, yeah, that's really cool.
I was old enough then.
I love that Rock and Roll Animal live album. I think it's so
That's
good.
interesting because you see, I grew up with the Velvet Underground, so to me that was like the stadium sellout version of the Velvet
Oh
Underground.
yeah,
But then it's sort of like the Allman Brothers playing with the Velvet Underground
yeah. It's definitely like more
because
professional.
it's a lot of guitar harmony.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely tight.
And
That's for
it's
sure.
not bad. It's just different. It depends what you're accustomed to. Now, I even like the Allman Brothers, but I don't like their songs. I
Yeah.
mean, I like a couple of their songs, but they're not. They're known as jammers and players and great musicians, not songwriters.
What about John Cale? Did you ever see John Cale?
Oh yeah, I saw John Cale at the Bottom Line. John Cale's he does the greatest version of Heartbreak Hotel you ever saw.
Really?
So dramatic.
Yeah, I love
He
the.
does, did you ever hear it? It's really slow and spooky.
No, I don't
You
think I've
know,
heard. I had to check it out.
check out Heartbreak Hotel when we get off the phone.
Yeah,
It's probably on YouTube by John Cale.
cool. Yeah, I like Cale a lot.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and Cale told me he likes you too.
he said that, didn't he?
He said, "I like that Ryan Kidd. He's one of the best new artists out there." By the way, I didn't get to say this. I really like the album very much.
Oh, thanks, Alan. That's very nice of you. Um,
Oh, I'm not. I ain't lying.
I think I was overtaken by the spacemen from Pluto while recording.
Well, we once played with a band when I did one Alan Milman sex show out here when I first played with Evan at the Crocodile, and that was oh, what did we just say before that?
Oh, I don't know what. I don't know.
Let's roll back the tape.
We don't
Yeah,
have
you
that
can't do that,
technology.
huh?
No, we don't have the technology. I only have one question left, and it's to finish this sentence. Rock and roll
Okay.
is.
The Alan Millman sect.
I like it. Truth.
Because I'm very immodest.
What a doji answer.
Douche.
Oh man, Alan, I had so much fun talking to you and doing this interview. Thank you for
Well, we could do this
being on the
whenever you
show.
want,
Yeah, that would be
you know,
great. There's
like next year or something.
you have so much to share, and I'm glad you shared
And,
it with me, man.
oh, that was my pleasure, and I'm hoping that you seriously are considering coming out. I have studio time, and we could do some stuff out here.
That would be really cool, man. We'll keep in touch
We'll
on
work
it,
work
and
work with Evan and Eric, and we could come up with some good stuff.
definitely, man. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you,
I
and I'll
appreciate it,
talk to you
man.
soon.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. All right, brother.
Take care,
All right,
Ryan.
take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.